Good evening, everybody. This is Rob Mazak. I am a psychic medium. I am coming to you from Austin, Texas on Monday, the 13th of May. And just like I normally do, I'm going to start with an idea and see where it goes. No script, just going to talk from the heart, talk off the cuff, and see where it takes us. I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a psychic and a medium. I know I have done some talks on this before. Recently, I had this very interesting experience that kind of talks about or lends to the feeling that being a psychic and a medium is a gift, but can also be a bit of a curse in a lot of ways. I say that because when you know things, when you can predict things and they come true, sometimes that's really cool because it's a really good outcome. But there are those times when things come up and you just know something's going to happen. And then when it does happen, it can be very tragic and very, not so much fun. It is a very, very tenuous experience to figure out what it is you should say or if you should say anything. We'll kind of swing back around to that just in a little bit. But the experience I had recently is I've got a new position here in Austin on my military deployment, working with somebody new. Well, I know who they are, worked with them before, but I'm working in a different role, a role I've had before, but it's been a couple years. And it was just a couple days into this assignment, I realized that my coworker was going to experience a very interesting event, or at least that was my intuition. I really felt like he was going to have an issue with his motorcycle and some type of accident, some type of incident. And I don't know why I didn't say anything, but I am also that kind of guy that doesn't like to just go around chirping things and getting into people's business and saying things that, for all I know, may or may not be true. Which I'm saying that, but most of the things I get intuitively usually are quite true, or at least in some sense. Sometimes it's not literal, but sometimes it's figurative, but it is very much in line with what I've gotten. I'm not tooting my horn. I'm just saying that it can be a very, how would I say that? A very crooked road to walk. Because, we all want to say things, especially when our track record becomes very good as far as getting information or downloads or however it is you like to say that. A lot of people say it different ways. But when you get something that's from outside of yourself that you shouldn't know, and then it happens, it can be very validating, very, very fun. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that come through that are not fun. And I really don't want people to experience that. But, it kind of comes down to the fact that we all run our own path. We all run our own life. We all have our own perceptions. We all have our own goals. We all have our lessons to learn. And it's just like when you have kids that are, raising kids. If you do everything for them, you protect them all the time, knowing that something bad is going to happen, and you put them in a shell and you put them in these boundaries that are really tight, so much so that they never ever learn what it is to learn what life is about, or to become hardened, because this world is tough, guys. It's really, really tough. And we don't want them to suffer, to get hurt, or to die or anything like that. But at the same time, there's got to be a balance. You got to allow them to learn some lessons. Of course, we want to protect them. We want to help them along. That's kind of the same dynamic or analogy I'm talking about here. With every human being, we all have our own lessons, our own goals, our own things we need to learn. And it is good to protect people. It is good to keep them from real danger. But at the same time, some of these things come on because of variety of reasons. It could be that lessons need to be learned, things that need to be brought to light, or as I like to call it, getting the big spiritual hammer because you're not listening. You're not resting, for example. You're going to get some kind of illness or some kind of accident that will force you to rest. In a lot of ways, it's a very, very hard message to get and hard lesson to have. But let's just face it, as human beings, we are very limited already based on the available amount of information that's out there. We've talked about this before. Less than 1% of everything that is available in the creation as we know it, and that's just what we know, of course, is just less than 1%. And so imagine the other 99%, how amazing that would be. And most of us don't bother to get outside of our five senses and go into the sixth sense. I'm sure there's other senses, but let's just talk about the sixth sense, that extra sense that it's outside of the five. Hearing, smelling, seeing, feeling, all those fun things. Probably left one out. But you get my point. And we don't get outside of that 1%, then we're going to be limited and we're not going to learn all the lessons we need to. And if we do, we're going to learn them the very, very hard way. And so when you get information about something, especially when you become new or you are new into an organization or a new office or a new role like I am now, it is very difficult at best to bring that up. And it's not like I didn't already kind of prove the track record a bit already in the few days that I've been there. At the same time, I don't even know how to put this into words. It is a very big struggle. And when something actually does happen, like with my coworker, they actually did have a pretty large motorcycle accident. And in some ways, you want to feel bad. You don't want to feel bad, but in some ways you feel bad. But at the same time, I also have to kind of step back and look at that from a different light. Was it meant to happen? Would it have mattered what I've said? Would it have mattered if I had brought it up? Because let's just face it, let's go back to the analogy of the kids. You could say all kind of things to your kids, but it is amazing how many times they don't listen to us and they just go on and do it anyway. Even though we've been through those things and we know better, sometimes you just have to let it fail. Of course, within reason, of course. But it's the same thing with adults, and in this situation, perhaps this is something that's meant to be, and maybe it is not my place to say something. Now, when somebody comes to me and we're doing a reading or they have a question, I'm going to be straight up honest about things. But even so, when you're peeking into the future, like I said in other podcasts, when you can see what is going to transpire in the future or what could transpire in the future, to me these days it has really become something more akin to, if you keep doing what you're doing now, you keep living life the way you're living it, then this is likely to where you are going to end up. This is where your path is going to go. This is where it's going to lead you. In that light, I like to help people understand how they possibly change that, get out of their norms, their comfort zone, and change some things so that their outcome doesn't look like I'm seeing it. No, let's not pat myself on the back too hard there, Robert, because of course I'm not God, and a lot of people have that opinion of psychics. They think that if you claim to be a psychic, you can see everything and anything. Well, that's not necessarily true. You only see the key things, the things that you're supposed to see, the things that you're supposed to see for a client in a reading, or things that you're supposed to see that are coming up that are important. Okay, and so let's circle back around to that. I didn't say anything about that particular accident. I get it. And in some ways, maybe I should have, but would it have made a difference? Maybe not. But at the same time, there were some things spoken out loud that by this individual that made me feel like this was exactly what he spoke into existence. when you say things that are very non-specific, you have to be careful, people. I'm not going to repeat what he said. It's not something to put out for public broadcast. But when somebody says things like, I want a lot of money, I want to be a millionaire, it comes into your life because somebody in your life, an old aunt or uncle or grandmother or something passed away, they died, and all of a sudden you have millions of dollars. Now that is a really crazy dilemma. And that kind of stuff happens a lot. And I'm not saying you caused them to die or pass away for that to happen. But if you're a little more specific, it's very helpful. I also had a hypnosis client one time that was asking about why they had to suffer through a massive car accident. And they had a lot of back pain and a lot of problems that were very long term. And it was interesting, the answer that we got back for that was very much what I just said. Is they said, well, you were looking for a certain amount of money to have enough money for a down payment on a house or something like that. It's been a while since we did this session. You weren't specific enough, so this is the way we brought it to you. And that is exactly the amount of money that she needed through the settlement for that car accident. Once again, you got to be very specific, because if you're not careful, you're gonna get something the way you don't want it. I think one of the best ways to look at this is through a client that I did a reading for. Oh my gosh, I want to say it's 4 or 5 years ago. One of the things that came up was that I felt like there was a bunch of money coming into her life. She revealed that she in fact was about to receive millions of dollars in the exact amount that she had been trying to manifest, or had manifested rather. And what she said was very, very clever and very to the point of this conversation. She said, I want this particular amount of money, whatever it was, $15 million. But I don't want anybody to have to die. I don't want anybody to have to suffer. I don't want anybody hurt. I just want this money to come into my life without anybody being affected, to create this money. And that's exactly how it happened. So we do have to be careful how we ask for things or what we say without thinking. In another podcast, I talked about this before, where I went to work, this is about a year ago or so. I would go to work every day and I would start sneezing, because I have allergies, and I get it. It happens because I move around a lot in this military deployment, and I have to get used to a different set of allergens all the time. And I was going to work sneezing almost every morning, and I got into this habit of just saying out loud to everybody at work, I must be allergic to work. The funny thing is I said it so often that I believe I began to be allergic to work. Because even when, the skies were clear and there really weren't any allergens around, or not any high ones or no high values, I was still sneezing every time I walked in the door. So I realized that, though, after a while of this happening. And so I corrected that, or at least I quit saying it. And the symptoms very much subsided. So being careful what you say, especially out loud. When we are speaking things into existence, which is exactly what we do, everything we think, everything we say, normally becomes reality, especially if it's persistent and consistent enough. And so if we have routine sayings that we use all the time, it will become our reality. It will be something that comes into our life. So be careful what you think, what you say. Now, when you say it out loud, it's even more powerful than most ways you try to manifest things, or that things are manifested. Just think about that. If you have to speak, or you're going to speak, you have to have the thought first. So in other words, you are doing the same saying, verbalizing the same thing through two different ways, through thoughts and words. And when you hear it through your own words, it's you're looking at a triple demic here. You are thinking it, you are saying it, you are hearing it, and you feeling the vibrations in your head. I mean, it's just an amazing way to manifest. But the problem is that we speak things that we really shouldn't. Now you got to be very, very specific. So I'll give you another example. So when I was ready for my next relationship after I went through my self-discovery, self-healing journey after my first divorce, my only divorce, sorry. When I was ready, I actually spoke out loud all of the things that I was looking for in my next relationship, my next woman. You know, hair color, hair length, eye color, height. I mean, all the qualities I could think of. She showed up the next week. And my wife says I ordered her up like a cheeseburger. You know, I don't know. Did I actually create it, or did I actually just come into alignment with somebody that was supposed to come in my life anyway? So I was ready, and the opportunity was there. I know there's a lot of ways to look at that. But once again, let's go back to the original thought. Being able to see things and to know things that are outside of my normal purview through my five senses, through that other sense or other senses, sixth sense like we talked about, it can cause quite the ethical dilemma in your mind. Because there, I can tell you, there's many, many things I wanted to say to people. But I don't want to be that guy. I do not want to be that guy that just walks up and randomly tells you things. You know, I mean, I already do things that are pretty well considered crazy. I mean, I don't need to start doing that. And I don't think anybody wants to hear those kind of things. Now, if they're willing and they're open and it's the right time, perhaps. And if they have a trust in you and a faith in you and they call you up and say, hey, what are you getting? Well, you know, sure, I'm going to tell them. And I've only actually done that one time that I can remember. I mean, really just some perfect stranger. I was in the gym one day, one morning, and I saw this woman working out. She obviously had some kind of neurological issue, so it seemed like she was moving really awkwardly, but she was just getting it with those weights, you know, very motivated. And I kept getting the voice kept saying, you need to go talk to this woman. You need to give her this message. Don't recall the message per se, but it was something about being a very beautiful and energetic light or something like that. And I kept arguing with this intuition. You know, I really don't want to go do that. And I just kept getting back, you are going to go over there. And so I did. I didn't get the courtesy not the courtesy. I didn't get the fun part of that because I was only the messenger. I went over and told her that. And I never spoke to her again. So what impact I made, if at all, I don't know. But really, if you think about it, or if I think about it, you know, what the impact is or what the journey's like after you deliver a message that you get is really not part of the equation. I mean, it's nice to know. It is really cool when somebody comes back after several years of later, after you've worked with them doing whatever, you know, service, and they tell you how much it's changed their life and which direction their life went and how it just just tremendously changed everything. Now that is really cool. Don't get me wrong. I love that. I absolutely love that, because we do have egos, and we, you know, sure, we want to know that what we do and what we do as a profession is actually bringing value to people. And once again, I don't know if it's really my place to just say things to people because I get the information. I'm having a little trouble, as you can hear now, I'm having a bit of an ethical dilemma now, trying to figure out how to even explain this. Because I really, it would have been nice if that didn't happen and that he could have learned this lesson or whatever it is that he supposed to learn a much different way. But we all get those things in our life. We get that big spiritual hammer. We get those things because we're not listening. Perhaps, you know, we need to spend more time with our families, working too much, working too hard, playing too hard, whatever, not paying attention. Sometimes it takes a big thing like this, like an accident or something like that, to force your hand where you really, really need to actually spend time with your family. And, I even worked in the burn center, at the Army Burn Center for 10 years. I think the most classic example I have of that was I had a patient that I was taking care of, and he had burned his hands, at least the palms of his hands, really, really badly. And they, had grafts and all kind of things. And if you don't know what burns are like and grafts are like, it's a tremendous amount of rehab and work and pain and all those things. And his wife was there all the time. I mean, she was there every day. She was there all the time. And I remember her telling me, she says, I've been praying and praying and praying that I could have more time with my husband. Because of work and money and family and all these things, we just really didn't have the time. And I was praying and praying for that. I never imagined it would be like this. I have my time, but look what's going on with my husband. Now, that doesn't mean she created it. That doesn't mean that it happened because she was wishing that. But you kind of get my point. A lot of things, sometimes the big spiritual hammer meets opportunity. And it's just something that sometimes it just happens that way. I don't know about you guys, but I am tired of the big hammer, the big spiritual hammer. By the way, sorry for that loud noise in the back. I'm a little bit on call. My new job is 24 hours a day, basically. There you go again. Never stops. You have to be mindful. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask for what you want because because of the fear of causing other people's lives to change. That's not the deal. You still need to put out your intentions. But if you carve that out a little bit better, like the example I used with the gal who put boundaries on that is important. And that is something that a lot of us don't do. And I have tried for many years to be really mindful of that. Am I perfect? Do I still miss that target? Miss that advice? I sure do. I'm human like everybody else. And so, once again, being psychic, being medium, having mediumship ability, all those things are really cool, really fun, very rewarding, but at the same time, it can be very upsetting. And I'm not saying that you guys out there shouldn't go after those kind of gifts. I think it's important for all of us because there's a lot of people that need that advice that are not good at it or not ready to do it on their own. It is important to have a bigger army of people out there that will reach out into that sixth sense and pull out information for people, for one thing that they should know, which really helps the client pay attention and listen, but also to help everybody you work with go in a different direction, change their life, become a better person, do something different, and actually get out of their own way. I mean, I think that's what we do here, right? We're all getting in our own way. We make choices, we make decisions based on things that are not necessarily in line with the right way of doing business. And sometimes it feels like it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it is absolutely that ego that drives those decisions, and we get ourselves in trouble. We get ourselves off track. Next thing you know, we're broke, we're hurt, well, whatever. A lot of things like that come about. But what's interesting, though, with this whole issue with this motorcycle accident? I own my own motorcycle, and I've been wanting to get that motorcycle up to where I'm now stationed because it's at the house in a different city. And we've even looked at trailers, and we just haven't spent the money. And something just kept me from getting it up here. The same weekend, this past weekend, one of the other soldiers had their motorcycle stolen from one of the places that were being rented for us to stay. I can tell you that is a very big eye-opening thing for me. I'm not saying I'm not going to ride my motorcycle. I'm not saying that. But I can guarantee you that if nothing else, that is a solid message that I don't need that motorcycle here. It's not the place to have it. It's a big city. Well, so is San Antonio, where I'm from. But Austin traffic is incredibly, very, very tough to drive in, no matter what you're driving. And so, for me at least, this is a silver lining in the cloud that I simply don't need that motorcycle here. I'm going to leave it at home, and I'll drive it when I'm at home on my days off or when I'm at the house. I usually have to work from home, but you get my point. Once again, everything that happens to anybody, to you, doesn't matter. There's always some type of message in there for you. There's always some kind of thing that you can take out of it, some kind of thing that can help you make better decisions or different decisions. How many times have you known people or friends or family that have died, and it's just changed how you live life, how you think about life, how you look at your habits and how you're doing things. If nothing else, for a little while. But sometimes it takes big things in our lives for us to pay attention. And like I said, I don't know about you, but I don't want the big things anymore. I'm trying really hard to listen, even though I'm super busy at work and it can be very distracting. But if we don't take time out for ourselves to meditate, to pay attention, to be mindful of what kind of things or signs and things that are going on around us, we're going to find ourselves in a world of hurt. You must take care of yourself. You must take the time out. I'm not saying take time out for lousy habits or watching TV or whatever. I'm talking about taking time out where you can sit with yourself. Just hang out with yourself, whatever that looks like. If it's out walking, if it's lifting weights, if it's meditating, if it's putting music in your ears. Find a way to centralize yourself, to center yourself, and really pay attention to your thoughts and what's going on. And hopefully you can hear those voices. You can hear that intuition, those messages that are coming in from outside of ourselves all the time, every second of the day. And if you just take the time, you will find out more about yourself, more about your path, more about what you should be doing, more about the people that you should have in your life and should not have in your life, decisions that you should be making. You were doing yourself a very big discredit by being so busy that you are not paying attention at all. And don't get me wrong, I'm preaching to the choir here because, I stay busy all day long. Phone call after phone call. I'm carrying 3 phones. And so this is also a reminder to me that I need to stop. Even if I just got to go hang out in the bathroom and pretend I'm actually in there for a reason, just to get moments to myself where I can listen. I can listen to who I am and to me and to what I need to know, what I need to hear. And we all need to do that. So being psychic and being medium is really cool. And it is really great to be able to help people with advice and direction. But the funny thing is a lot of people that are gifted forget that they need to also do the same thing for themselves. Gifted people, for lack of a better word, are having trouble using our own advice or feeling or trusting the information that we're getting about us and our direction and our decisions, then we too need to reach out to people. And I have people I go to, and I have several people that consult with, get readings for. All these decisions and things that happen in life, especially the really big ones, they're important to get a second opinion. Even if I'm really good at what I do, it's hard to read for yourself. It's hard to be your own coach. Every coach should have a coach. Every counselor should have a counselor. You get the point. So let's wrap this up. Summary, let's be careful how we speak, what we say. Let's also be very specific about what we are intending, what we are praying for. And also be mindful that in everybody's tragedy, in everybody's circumstances, things that happen to others, things that happen to you, there's always a message, there's always a reason. There is always a plan for what happens. Nothing happens by accident. There is no coincidence. It's all synchronicity. Everything is a message. Everything is coming from without. to get your attention, to get you diverted, get you moving on the right path. Let's all take the time, pay attention, listen, and trust. And if you can't do that, find someone that can help you with that. I will always welcome your comments, your ideas about the things we just talked about. I know I kind of rambled and went around in circles. Never know how these things are going to go. But I would love to hear from you. Go to my website, lifebymazak.com, lifebymazak.com. Find my contact page. Send me a message. Let's collaborate. Let's talk. Let's trade ideas. Let's see where we can help each other. I look forward to hearing from you. You will hear from me again. Stay strong and live your life.